beautiful downtown Millheim, in the smack dab center of the Keystone State. This is Lou Bryson with Seen Through a Glass, a podcast that's mostly about food and drink in central Pennsylvania. Welcome to episode 79, Just Say Kish, the Big Valley. This is another episode I've wanted to get to for quite a while, mainly because of how much the Big Valley reminds me of home. As I know I've mentioned, I grew up among the Amish and Mennonites in Lancaster County. I went to school with Mennonites and even a few Amish kids. One of my good friends in school was an Amish boy named Reuben Smucker. At least, we were friends up through the 8th grade, and after that, Reuben went to work on the family farm, an exemption allowed by the Pennsylvania requirements for public education. I went to first grade in a one-room school with second graders. We had electric lighting, but there was a coal stove for heat and outdoor plumbing. That was in 1967, the last year there were one-room schools in my district. My sister went to them for 4 years. We shopped pretty regularly at an Amish store. A friend had told me about it. We used to call it the secret Amish store in the woods because you had to go down a half-mile private farm lane to get to it. It was quiet, and on very cloudy days, they'd light Coleman lanterns so you could see. They had a lot of natural remedies, organic foods, and local produce and cheese. Once I'd started taking German in high school, I could pick up bits and pieces of the Pennsylvania Dutch they'd speak. Occasionally, I'd pick up some cash on the side by helping a friend haul wooden toys and furniture made by Amishmen in a small factory. They had pneumatic power tools run off a diesel compressor. No electricity, that's a connection to the world. By the time I left Lancaster in the 1980s, things were changing. There were still Amish, but the Lancaster Amish were modernizing. They took vacations. Some of them had modern tractors with steel wheels. When we landed here in Millheim, I saw that there were still Amish who lived a more traditional life. The most so were the Nebraska Amish, called the White Toppers for the extremely plain white buggies they drive, a simple wooden box wagon body with a roof of undyed canvas using kerosene lanterns for running at night. The Nebraska Amish are held to be the plainest of the plain people, as these Anabaptist, Amish, and Mennonite sects are collectively known. I'd never seen those in Lancaster, but they were fairly common here. After we bought the house in 2016, I learned that they came from the Big Valley, or the Kish Valley, as it's also called. And then I noticed that as we drove up Route 322 to visit Millheim, we'd pass the Belleville-Reedsville exit, and there was a big building there with a sign that said, Kish Bank. I was intrigued, and I started researching. The Kish Valley and the Kish Bank are named for the Kishocoquillas Creek. You can see why people just say Kish. The Kish runs the length of the valley, from down the southwestern end near Allensville up to Belleville, where it's joined by the Little Kishocoquillas. The creek then flows northeast to Reedsville, where it turns sharply to the southeast and leaves the Big Valley through the Man Narrows, paralleling Route 322. It runs on down through Lewistown before dumping into the Juniata, but we're only interested in the Big Valley, the Kish Valley, today. And we're going to be interested in the Big Valley next episode as well. I had promised you last time that we'd have an interview with Revival Kitchen owner-chef Quentin Wicks and a mystery interview. But I wound up doing both of those interviews in the same day and realized that this was too much good material to stuff into one episode. And, well, it really is a big valley, so we're going to do 2 episodes on the Big Valley because it's so big. You're going to get Chef Quentin in Reedsville next episode in part 2. Today, you're going to get the Big Valley proper. Plain people, farming, lettuce, donuts, all that. And the interview is with the CEO of the engine that helps keep the whole valley running, Greg Hayes of Kish Bank. I never interviewed a bank president before, and I wasn't sure how it would go, but our friend Sam Komlenik assured me that Greg was a good guy, and he was right. So let's get started. And I'll tell you, we better get a drink, because it is hard to find a drink in the Big Valley. So here's what I'm drinking today. What I'm drinking today is Tumblin' Dice Jamaican rum-finished rye whiskey, aged 6 years in standard new charred oak barrels, and then an additional 4 years in rum barrels. That's different. Tumblin' Dice is a sourced whiskey brand owned by a guy I know, Dave Schmier. Dave's a good guy, smart guy, who built up the Redemption whiskey brand, sold it, and built a new company with the money he'd made and the knowledge he'd earned. The new venture is Proof and Wood, and it's a whole new plan. Going back to redemption, Dave told me when I interviewed him for American Whiskey Masterclass, I thought of myself as a brand owner. Bought whiskey on Monday, bottled it on Tuesday. But at Proof and Wood, Schmier is now buying both new make whiskey to lay down while still buying aged whiskey for blending. He said, aging and blending with intent is important to me. As the name kind of implies, I don't distill, but I do have control of the age, the wood, and the proof, the ABV in the bottle. Dave's put out some really good whiskeys under the Tumblin' Dice brand, some of my favorites. More importantly for Dave, they've won major reputable awards. This new whiskey represents the kind of things he's doing now. Not just choosing barrels of whiskey, but blending and aging and finishing whiskeys. It also shows that Dave hasn't limited himself to whiskey. The rum barrels this is finished in were used to age another Proof and Wood product, the Funk Jamaican pot-stilled rum. And that's interesting in itself, because all releases of the Funk up to this point have been unaged at 100 proof, bursting with heavy pot-still aromas. If there are used Funk barrels, there's aged Funk coming. Let's have a taste of this stuff. It's quite dark. A solid brown, kind of mahogany. It's got a reddish tinge to it. I'll tell you, I could smell it as soon as I poured it out of the bottle. Yeah. There's a big whiskey aroma, oak and vanilla and some sweet stuff and some of that grassy, minty rye. But there's also the fruity rummy notes. It's not as strong as I would have expected from the look of it, but 4 years in a used rum barrel is going to do something to it. It's got a real fruit bowl character to it. Wow. That's got some power to it. This is 111.78 proof, 55.9% by volume. Huge legs on this. Just streaking the glass. Boy, all of that is there in the flavor. I got to say, when I first smelled this, I thought there's a category, a number of whiskeys where you get a strong juicy fruit character, like juicy fruit gum. And when I smelled this, I was thinking, oh, this is going to be like juicy fruit. It is not like juicy fruit gum. It is deeper and richer than that. That juicy fruit character in some whiskeys is almost playful. This isn't playful, but it's still enjoyable. Wow. And the finish is really warm. Wood comes through. There's a little bit of burn on the tongue. I'm going to do something I don't usually do in these tastings. I'm going to add some water to this because I'm really curious as to what that'll do. Just a little bit of spring water in there. Wow. Really thins out the aroma. Get a lot more wood now. Less of the fruit. Oh my. Makes it a lot easier to drink. Doesn't have that, really kind of intense heat from the full proof. Yeah, definitely a little bit of water helped that a lot. The mouth feels a little less, but the flavor's great. So I'm thinking, yes, for sipping, for sure. But I'm also thinking this might make a really interesting Manhattan. Maybe try that. Anyway, it is Tumblin' Dice, straight rye whiskey, finished in Jamaican rum barrels. Don't have a price for you, I apologize, but that is worth a look. If you see it in a bar, grab some. Meanwhile, here's your smack dab in the center, sponsored by the Happy Valley Adventure Bureau. Agritourism is a big deal in the Big Valley. We're going to talk about that soon, but it's a big deal in the Happy Valley, too. There are farm stands all along our highways and byways as we get into summer, especially in our valleys, Penns, Brush, Little Georges, and Nittany valleys. But I'm talking about a deeper experience, actually getting out on the farm, walking the ground, being around the animals. Here are a few suggestions, but you'll definitely want to check the happyvalley.com website for details. Most of these are by appointment only. Running a farm is a full-time job, and they need to plan around that to show you the place. I just saw baby goats in Virginia. I talked to you about that, and they are cute as anything. At Nittany Meadow Farm, you can see the goat dairy or get down with the baby goats for goat yoga. If you want, you can stay at the farm for a weekend and soak up the whole experience. If you've always wanted to saddle up and ride off, Buffalo Run Farm and Equestrian Center offers riding lessons, trail rides, and a whole equestrian summer camp experience. Maybe your interest in farming runs more to the good earth and growing things. Check out the Heirloom Farmer Plants for Sale. Plenty of free advice. Finally, the Happy Valley Lavender Farm is only open from mid-June to July, but it is a unique experience. Beautiful and fragrant fields of lavender will entrance and calm you with one of Pennsylvania's top crops. Once again, check before you go at the happyvalley.com website. Click on the Explore button and click on Happy Valley Ag Ventures to find these places and more. Now, ordinarily at this point in the episode, I'd give you some historical background on the Big Valley, maybe even a bit of geology, but we're going to cover that pretty well in Greg's interview, so I'm just going to give you a few high points. First, it's called the Big Valley for obvious reasons. This part of Pennsylvania is crossed by the Appalachians, running from down by Connellsburg northeast to right about the southern end of the Big Valley, where the ridges turn more to the east. They bend north again in the Poconos, but that's outside our scope today, though maybe not forever. I've got some ideas about that area. Anyway, if you take a look at the center of the state on Google Maps and flip the topographic view on, as I love to do, and I encourage you to take a look at that, you'll see that this area is striped with ridges and valleys, a geology that has made it a classic case of study for geologists. If you do look at that topographic view, the reason it's called the Big Valley is obvious. Valleys like Brush and Nittany and Penns, where I live, are relatively narrow, side to side. But the Big Valley sprawls nearly 4 miles across near Belleville and about 20 miles from end to end. Settlers saw that expanse and dug up a handful of the rich earth, and they must have thought, this is the place for me. About those settlers. Tracing the origins and history of the Anabaptists, the Amish and Mennonites, the Dunkards, Hutterites, and River Brethren would be well beyond the scope of this episode. If you're interested, I'd recommend the Anabaptist Perspectives podcast, an excellent ongoing examination of the world and the religion itself. But I will say a few things. First, despite historical parallels, the Moravians, who I've talked about before in the Lidditz and Northumberland Sunbury episodes, are not Anabaptists. Second, we'll mention that there are 12 distinct Anabaptist sects in the Big Valley, all of which originated from the original Amish settlement that came there from Lancaster County in 1791. If you're interested, there's a concise account available on the web, an article titled Amish and Mennonite Groups in the Big Valley by John Guss. I'll leave a link in the show notes. Finally, you probably know this already, but if you do come to the Big Valley for a visit, keep in mind that this isn't a museum or a tourist attraction. It's where these folks live. The buggies are how they get around, and you'll have to learn to drive with them on the road. Be aware when cresting hills or turning blind corners. Be cautious when passing, because if there's a lane to the left, the horse may just start to head into it. And please don't take pictures of the plain people. Buggies, farms, not a problem. But they do not hold with images of people, and I've respected that in the podcast. I'd ask you to do likewise. Thanks. With all that said, let's talk to Greg Hayes, CEO of Kish Bank. We met at the bank's Innovation Center, that big building I saw just off Route 322 10 years ago. I wasn't really sure what to expect, but we had a very easygoing interview. He grew up in the valley and has a local's perspective, including a surprisingly personal perspective on the 1993 barn burnings that brought the Big Valley to national attention. The Greg Hayes interview. Hey, I'm here with Greg Hayes, the CEO of Kish Bank. How are you doing this morning?
I'm terrific, Lou. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time for this. I'll be honest, this is a first for me. I've never interviewed a banker. It's always been somebody who makes food or drink. So
well, I enjoy those things too.
That's good. That's good. Before I go any further, I wanted to ask, Kish Bank is short for, I'm not going to say it, the creek that runs through the Big Valley. How do locals pronounce that?
Kishocoquillas.
Okay. All right. Thank you. It's pretty close to how I was saying it.
Yes.
And actually, I didn't know when I came to visit on Wednesday, I found the little Kishocoquillas. I did not know there were two.
Yes.
So,
Well, it's not just a creek. It's a long history.
yeah.
It was Chief Kishocoquillas, who was a Shawnee Indian chief. And they had the Ohesson settlement in the Lewistown area. And
okay. Yes.
And so so Chief Kishocoquillas, the tribe was not the Kishocoquillas Indian tribe. It was him.
Okay.
And so he was very connected with the settlers of the area. He was very helpful in the trade environment that existed in the late 1700s.
That was a pretty good sized settlement up there.
Yes. And so now he as the Shawnee Indians kind of got pushed out during the French and Indian War. There was a lot going on. They were a very peaceful Indian tribe, friendly to the white man, so to speak, and so they went west. So then the Scots-Irish really settled the valley in the area, which is where my family heritage comes in.
Okay.
For several centuries. So,
I'd like to talk about the valley somewhat. When did the plain people come? When did the Germans?
Yeah. So
arrive?
Predominantly late 1700s, mid to late 1700s. The traders were here, but then the settlers really came in post either right before or after the French and Indian War. And so you think 1790s, early 1800s is when things really started to grow in this valley.
Okay.
And then it grew from there. I mean, there some of the first homes in the late 1800s. Yeah.
Yeah, because I saw some pretty old looking houses down in Belleville.
Yes.
Yeah, some of the old big square log.
Yeah, in the valley, the oldest structure that's still here is the Alexander farmhouse, and that is a distant relative.
Oh, okay.
One of the first,
Alexander,
James Alexander.
Okay.
Yes. So
Maybe a little
he
Scottish.
settled here just a bit. Yeah, and the farmhouse I grew up in on the Back Mountain Road. In Belleville is the original log structure, late 1700s, early 1800s. So yeah, there's some good old homes around here.
Yeah. And again, just going off on Back Mountain Road, Front Mountain Road. What's the back and the front part? Because they're west and east. I don't know.
Well, the valley is contained by Jack's Mountain and Stone Mountain.
Okay.
And you've got a limestone mountain and a sandstone mountain and very fertile limestone valley in between.
Okay.
You get the 655 runs down the middle.
Yes.
And so with another road at the base of one mountain and another road at the base of the other, how they came up with front and back mountain, I'm not sure.
One had to be one had to be the other, I guess.
Yes, but it's how you get down the valley if you're not going down 655.
Right. Yeah.
And they are beautiful. I mean, road biking.
Yeah, not the fastest roads, but gorgeous.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so you are the fourth generation of your family to run Kish Bank. Your great-grandfather was a founder?
Yes. Abner Reed Hayes founded the bank early 1900s.
Okay.
In 1900. Now, it formed out of...
And where was that
multiple
then?
In Belleville.
In Belleville,
yes.
Okay.
The Farmers National Bank of Belleville in 1900 was the charter that he and several other businessmen put up capital to form. It was a business where they brought together local businessmen who, wanted to produce trade and create economic activity in this market. And so that grew, and then the Great Depression happened, and it really was actually in 1912, before the Great Depression, the Farmers National Bank evolved as well. I mean, my great-grandfather, Abner Reed Hayes, I think he was part of 4 or 5 banks.
Okay.
There was one in Milroy, there's one in Belleville, 2 in Belleville. But really, it all formed, Kishocoquillas Valley National Bank formed after the Great Depression. There was what they called the banking holiday, and they basically closed the doors, and banks had to recapitalize. And so my great-grandfather and several other folks put up their personal net worth to capitalize the bank. And in 1934, the Belleville National Bank and the Farmers National Bank merged or became one as the Kishocoquillas Valley National Bank. And it used that original Belleville National Bank charter. So it was a national bank charter. And there's the dual banking system is another conversation for another podcast. But yes. And largely through the 1900s, Kish Bank thrived in the Belleville community, serving agriculture and businessmen and women and the community it served. But it's just a small local bank.
Yeah.
It wasn't until the 1980s. And so my great-grandfather founded it. My grandfather was on the board. He was a local businessman, had a cannery and had a farm and numerous other business ventures. And then in the 70s, my father came out of the Coast Guard, and my mother and father were having their third child, which was me.
Okay.
And they decided that a Coast Guard salary could not support 3 kids, and so they moved back to home.
Okay.
My mother grew up in Burnham area. My father grew up in Belleville, and my father joined the bank. And at that time, it was $10 million in total assets. Mm-hmm. And now we're almost $2 billion in total assets.
You're not just in the valley anymore.
We're not just in the valley.
Yeah.
So my father, he likes to tell the story of banking before deregulation was the 3-6-3 rule. You would pay 3% on deposits, you'd collect 6% on loans because that's what the government told you to do, and you could be on the golf course by 3.
I remember that. Yeah.
I don't get that luxury these days.
It's a full-time job.
Yeah, my handicap would show that I don't get to the golf course every day at 3 o'clock. But what we do, the story we do tell relative to the 1980s and the deregulation of banking and the kind of this expansion of what has built Kish Bank is it allowed banks to be competitive, to manage their capital, to set interest rates, to provide a loan with a competitive advantage based on relationship. And that was Kish's secret sauce, is that we knew our communities, we knew the people, and this is really what community banking is all about. We were able to serve our communities better than someone else. And so as we grew our communities that we support. We grew into Reedsville. We grew into Lewistown. We grew into Huntington County. We grew into Center County. And now we're growing into Juniata County and Blair County. We are serving.
The first branch I noticed was in Pine Grove Mills. That's the first time I noticed a Kish Bank. I'm like, what is that?
And that was a branch we had acquired from several other banks who didn't feel like it was worth serving that particular community.
Oh, okay.
So it had been 3 different banks before us. But we said, no, Pine Grove is an important community.
Yeah, it's a small town, but
yeah. But and I think a lot of banks said, well, it's right next to State College. We don't. We felt differently. We felt that there was a nucleus of people there that had a community that needed supported, and we wanted to provide that. And so we acquired that branch before COVID, but not too long ago. Okay. And now we're maintaining it as we evolve what a branch looks and feels like, how we serve customers. It's evolving. The hours we offer, the capabilities through technology and human-enabled technology is evolving. But we can serve more smaller communities because we have a different approach. We're offering the ability to bank with a human using technology. So you go up to what you think would just be an ATM and you tap the screen and there's a live person. Right?
Okay.
And
that's different.
They pop up on the screen and they control the machine. You don't have to do anything. You stick your check in. We can cash checks. We can make loan payments. We can do split deposits. We can do all the things you would do if you walked in or drove up to a normal drive-through. Right. And so that's allowing us to serve these smaller communities with what we do, relationship-based, traditional banking, and what this community has instilled in us as values, core values. And that's why our brand and our name, Kish, is so important, is because it is at the heart of what came out of this valley. It's who we are. Okay. And it's what we'll never let change, because it's how we differentiate. it's the difference between us and when you go somewhere else and you don't get that personal. Everyone says, "Oh, we've got great people." Everyone says we treat customers well and we're customer centric. It is different, and we hear it when customers say, "Oh, boy, I wish I had switched to Kish a long time ago. I didn't know how different it was."
Right. Right.
It's a culture of caring, and that is something about this valley.
That's what
that is really special.
Yeah. I have to say, I talked to my sister. I mean, we both grew up in Lancaster County with the Amish, with the Plain people. We went to school with them, and I told her I was there in the valley on Wednesday, and she's like, "So they were giving you side eye as being the English?" No, no. Yeah. Everybody was. I went in one of the stores. What was it?
Pates?
Health and Heart? No, I went to Pates. But
okay.
Yeah, I went to Health. Coleman Lanterns.
Yeah.
14 people in the store. I was one of two men. I was the only English, and got into 3 different conversations. Just really nice people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Everywhere I went, it was like that.
Yeah. The mountains and the valley has been insulated from outside influence for a long time. The work ethic of the Anabaptists, and therefore then everyone who's come here,
sure,
and everyone who's grown up here, is that passion for helping people and working hard to do it, to be that friendly neighbor, that helping hand. It was a great place to grow up. It instilled a lot of great core values. And the same thing for Kish. It's been a great place for Kish to grow up because it has created an organization that thrives on that.
Gets that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was one of the things I wanted to ask you about the barn fires in 1993.
Yes.
One night, 6 barns burned. I mean, I assume it was arson, had to have been.
Yes.
And the next day, the community was there burying dead cattle, scraping out the timbers, and starting to rebuild. And Kish Bank spearheaded the financing, the fundraising. You offered your services to.
It is a great story. Born out of tragedy, of course.
Of course.
And it's interesting because it hits so close to home because I was a young man. I was in my teens. And my father and my mother and I had just come back from the movie JFK.
Oh.
And we were driving home along the back mountain road and came upon the first fire.
Wow.
Yeah. And we were actually there before the Amish had waken up. When the sun goes down, they go to bed, right?
And it's been a long day and they're
sleep. Up during the day because that's when they work. And then, and so we pulled in and we actually had to wake them.
Wow.
And it was hard. The animals were in the barns.
Yeah.
And, my father had to hold back the young farmer from trying to save his herd.
Right.
But you're right. The outpouring of help, from the Lancaster community,
from all over.
The Ohio Amish, the Indiana Amish, the Nebraska Amish. I mean, they came from everywhere. But so did the outpouring of the broader community.
Yes.
The Today Show, the newscasters showed up from everywhere. I remember my father being interviewed by the Today Show folks, and the reason we were so involved was because what Kish meant for this community and the partnership we have with the Amish community. It takes a different type of banking service to support them. Mm-hmm. They're not traditional in their use of finances. And we can talk about that, but their trust in Kish. So when a reporter asked one of the local heads of the church, people are going to want to send money, and where can they send it? And I remember walking into our house a couple days later, and there was a voice message on the phone from one of the bishops who had used, went to a payphone or whatever, and had called our house and left a message for my father and said, they asked where they could send money, and I hope the Lord was with me when I said, send it to Bill Hayes at the bank.
Wow.
And so the money started pouring in, and $5, $10. Kids from around the country, schools had heard this story, and the bank was receiving all of that. So they did envelope opening nights, and just bags of mail would show up, and they'd open these checks, and they put it all into an account, and they were the stewards and the shepherds of this money. And it raised over $1 million, which at that time was a lot of money, but it was good. The church was able to use that because it only affected one part of the Amish church. So there are 12 different sects.
It was all one
of
sect.
Amish. It was the White Topper Amish.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was 7 barns of that one church. Now they spread from Belleville all the way down to Milroy. The White Topper community is from this area, and they're a derivation of the Nebraska Amish.
We have some up where we are.
They had and they're the most orthodox, right?
Okay.
So their lanterns are oil, right?
Honest to God, when I got
they have no
here
flashing lights, no
from
battery,
Lancaster and saw the white tops with the oil lanterns, and I thought somebody was punking me.
Yeah,
wow.
They don't have shields on the front of their buggies.
No, it's a wooden box with a canvas frame, and that's it.
Yeah.
And
unfortunately, what had happened was there was someone who was excommunicated from the church or shunned.
Yeah.
And a young individual who had lost his way and felt that was the way he was seeking retribution. It was not it wasn't this attack on the church. It was an individual who had some difficulties, and so it was a real shame. But how the community responded was pretty amazing, and for me to watch and see all that happen at that age was pretty powerful. And it's now in our DNA, in the organization, in the community. But the idea of working with the Amish is something that is a little different.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things I noticed when I was here, and actually I've noticed every time I've been through the valley, the amazing number of small businesses.
Yes.
And not just in Belleville, Allensville, Reedville, all along Front and Back Mountain Road.
Very entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
Extremely entrepreneurial. Pallet businesses and restaurants.
Planing mills.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wood products.
Right. And the concrete. A lot of concrete and masonry.
Yeah. Laborers. It's interesting, that work ethic that I talked about, it comes from their culture and what they do, but it also produces successful businesses because if you think about it, they're not hourly wage people. There's no salary or hourly wage. They get paid by the piece. So the more you do,
right,
the more successful the business is, more family you can help, the more community you can help. They don't do it to make money. They do it to sustain their way of life. And so the more they can give back to their church, the more they can support their family members. One of the interesting things is there's a lot of farmers. So you go back many generations and farmers had 150, 200 acre farm. Well, then they have 2 sons, and so they have to divide it in half and give some to their son. And so the farms have gotten smaller and smaller because young Amish have had to leave the community and go where they can, or they've had to develop other businesses.
Right.
And so because we're landlocked in this valley, we couldn't grow more land or expand more land.
There's only so much.
So they had to get into other businesses to sustain their way of life, to sustain their families, and so that's where you see the advent of so many businesses.
Yeah,
is that they love it here. They've grown up here. They're raising their families here. They're part of their church, the community, and that means, well, okay, there's not another 50 acres to carve off on the farm. What are we going to go do?
What can we do? Yeah, and
so they go work for the mason, or they go work for the mill, or any of the number of things that you see down this valley. And so it's a really special place in that regard, and some great businesses, great craftsmen.
Now, do they do business with you?
Yes,
I assume. Yeah.
Yes, they do business with Kish, but not in the conventional way.
Okay. Okay, that's twice you've said that. What do you mean?
So they don't rely on credit scores, right?
Okay.
So they don't pay into Social Security.
Right.
They do pay income tax, but they don't pay some of the other elements that they don't participate in.
Mm-hmm. And they want a Supreme Court case on that.
Yes.
The Social Security. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that.
But they're savers and they're planners and they value stability. They're not highly leveraged. So we've adopted the approach that we meet them where they are. We honor their religious beliefs and their culture. We're focused on relationship, which is very important to them, establish the trust. And also we're the average drive time for our branches, for our customer base, is 7 minutes.
Okay.
Over 70% of our customers live within 7 minutes of a branch. That is born out of the Amish community. They don't have cars.
Right.
They're coming in a buggy. They need a local branch close to them. And so we have focused on that. We didn't go closing a bunch of branches. We remained independent. We didn't get gobbled up by a bigger bank. And so we've been able to support that community very well. And we've been here long enough that they can trust that. And we're able to look at requirements like, okay, you have a mortgage on your home, you're required to have insurance. Well, they have a different approach to insurance. Right. They have a community like Amish aid. Mm-hmm. When one individual is down, they all chip in and help that individual. When a barn burns, they're all there to help rebuild the barn. And so we know that.
We
understand
that, exactly.
And it allows, and our regulators, banking regulators, allow us to work outside of the traditional boxes.
Wow.
And that's another part of our culture.
Yeah.
So as we go to support a business that isn't Amish, that isn't in the Big Valley, we have that culture of being able to get outside of the box and do something non-traditional to help people who are doing good things, who are doing well. And so it's just really kind of that cool element of what Kish in the community means because of where we're from.
We're here, and you grew up here. I don't want to talk just about business as fascinating as this is, because I really do find it interesting. I mentioned I was in one of those stores. I bought a book on the Mifflin County Amish, which is, I think, a third of the book is footnotes, and I'm really looking forward to digging into it. I want to learn more about it. But tell me about the Valley. Tell me what it's like living here.
Yeah.
I mean, you grew up here.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. Well, I understand this podcast is generally about food and whiskey.
Yes.
There is a story I'd like to tell that connects, that your listeners may say, oh, wait a minute. Okay, now here's a piece I'm interested in.
Okay.
And that is,
because I have to be honest, most people, when they think Big Valley, they think, oh, well, I'll have to get a drink before I go, because I'm not going to get one here.
That's not true. In the late 1700s, mid 1800s, even through the periods of time of Prohibition, there was a lot of whiskey being produced in this valley. You had the rich, fertile fields, fresh mountain water.
Oh, sure.
If you go down this valley, and every time you see a little hollow in the mountain,
walk
up that hollow. There's going to be a natural spring there.
Yeah.
And so I grew up on a farm across the field from one of those hollows in a natural spring. And in that hollow is an old whiskey distillery foundation. And I used to climb around those rocks and play fort and all of those things. But now understanding that, and this ties, I mean, we transitioned from talking about business, but it ties into banking. So instead of hauling grain over the mountains,
right,
they turn that grain into whiskey and can transport it and so
one mule of whiskey is 8 mules of grain.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Big difference.
So it was literally liquidity.
Yes. Yes.
From a banking term standpoint for their grain. And so they took the natural resources that existed in this valley and used them to prosper.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool that there were so many. Now, I don't know how we didn't get a strong distillery. I've got a bottle of Michener's in my cabinet, which is a good Pennsylvania bourbon. And now it's been
it's in Kentucky now, but it's a good Pennsylvania name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
originally Mennonites.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how the Valley didn't produce. I'm sure, but if we had better documentation, there's a good recipe somewhere world of whiskey. But food is the other one. The Amish are tremendous bakers.
Oh, you see it everywhere.
Whoopie pies and moon pies
Sure.
and apple
and
schnitz.
The donut shop down in Allensville.
Best donuts you can
Oh my God.
ever get.
Too much.
Yes.
Wow.
Well, when they make food with lard,
Yes.
versus processed,
He had a sign up in the place that said last year we made 7 tons of cream filling. Oh my Lord.
that's great.
That's amazing.
I hope I didn't eat
I know.
more than my share of it.
More than maybe 200, 300 pounds.
It's hard
Right.
to resist. And so there's some tremendous history here. So growing up in the valley, I loved it. Very natural, outdoor, the farming community, the Amish community. It was great. I get on my bike and you could ride forever down the valley, across the valley.
Sure.
Hiking in the mountains. It's a bit of a paradise.
Yeah. Yeah. What are some of your favorite things to tell people to do here if people come to visit?
Well, you got to get a whoopie pie, right?
Okay.
So you talk about some of those businesses. Go to Pate's store, go to the Whitehall store in Allensville. Go see some of those Amish craftsmen. If you can,
a lot of furniture
go to
places.
Days Gone By and get an authentic buggy ride.
Okay.
In Allensville, there is a craftsman, and they're now in their third generation of craftsmen. They make the most amazing live edge furniture. You'll see it throughout some of our offices and our buildings, made out of knotty burl wood and whatnot. Just explore. Go find the little things that.
That's it. There's so many little things that you just got to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
for being called the Big Valley, a lot of it's about the little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If when we're done, you're going to go get lunch. You got to go to Hostetler's.
Oh yeah. Okay. Right.
Just talk to people, because where the real power of it is in the community. Like you said, you were in a store and you had to struck up a couple conversations.
Yeah.
It's amazing what you learn and what you feel through that connection of that human connection. You can't get that in today's day and age on a screen.
No,
you can't get that with AI.
Yeah,
and that's what
you might think you are.
Yeah,
but you're not.
That's what will always be special about this, and I think it's because of the valley, the shape of the valley, the mountains. It contains it. It keeps the culture here. It keeps some things out that are better left out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And walk the creek, see what Kish Creek looks like. Think through the evolution of the Kishocoquillas tribe, or Chief Kishocoquillas, and the Indians who used to live here. It's just study the history. The Mennonite Historical Society in Belleville is a great place to visit and learn about. Reidsville has become this great little downtown of thriving entrepreneurial businesses.
How much is going on there given the size of the place?
Yes. So just explore it and go all the way down the valley, through Milroy, past New Lancaster Valley, down into the other end. Some phenomenal state parks and mountain areas that are just a wonderful place to spend the day.
Greg, thank you very much. I appreciate this.
Absolutely.
It's been fun.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Sam was right. Greg's a good guy. Let me know what you think about that interview, by the way. After the interview with Brandy Shimp and now this one, I'm curious what you think about us interviewing people who aren't directly making food and drink. Yay? Nay? Wait and see? Let me know. It's your podcast too. After that, I got out and wandered the Big Valley. I just drove around, had a madly delicious donut. And can I just say, despite what you might think looking at me, I'm not actually a big donut fan generally, but this one, woo. I stopped at a couple small stores, a roadside farm stand, the Belleville Livestock Auction and Flea Market, a butcher shop, and the Brookmere Winery. I'm going to retrace my steps loosely and try to give you a feel of what it's like moseying along the Kish in the Big Valley. So that morning, I got off Route 322 and headed down Route 655 around 9:30. It was cloudy and cool, and the valley was starting to green up as spring arrived. The first landmark I saw was the big cow at Hamo Farm, the queen of the herd. They raise registered Ayrshire cows, and the Plum Bottom herd, as they are known, has been on the farm for over 30 years. Hamo Farm has a summer camp program for girls and various farm visit opportunities. It really makes me feel all kinds of nostalgic for my Lancaster days. On down the valley I went. I had decided to go to Allensville first and head back up, and the first stop was the good old cheese house. Yes, old, that's how they spell it. It's a clean, bright place with a deli counter and some cheeses and bulk foods and baked goods. I got a moon pie. Well, that's not the southern cello-wrapped s'more-ish cookie, but a half-moon-shaped fruit pie. I found it irresistible because it was a peach moon pie made at Peachy's Moon Pie. We might as well talk about the Peachy phenomenon, because later I stopped at Peachy Foods and Locker behind Belleville Livestock Auction, and there are, no joke, dozens of family businesses named Peachy all through the valley. I'm not sure that dozens is an exaggeration either. They range from bakeries and butchers to furniture and farms and masonry and timber mills. Peachy Foods was a butcher shop and frozen food locker establishment. If you're not familiar with that, frozen food lockers are essentially rental freezers, more popular with the Amish. I got some ring bologna, because I always get the ring bologna when I go to a new butcher. They're all different, and some of them are really good. I also got some trail bologna. This was smaller than Lebanon bologna, only about 2 inches in diameter, and cased in a tightly sewn brown fabric cover, like I remember from locally processed deer bologna. I asked the butcher what trail bologna was. He said it was essentially an older style, smaller, smokier, a little less sweet. I just finished it up for lunch today, and he was right on the money. Good stuff. Anyway, like I said, I asked him about the Peachy thing. Is that the only family name they have in the valley? I joked. He laughed and said no, but it was by far the most common, along with Zook and Yoder. It's one of the sects, too. The Peachy Amish, who drive black buggies, are the least conservative Old Order Amish. Least conservative as in they have screen doors and indoor plumbing. So that's the Peachy thing. Let me back up to my second stop of the day, Allensville Donuts. This was just off Route 655 on a little side street, and you can find this on Google Maps now. I edited their incorrect placement. You're welcome. And again, a pretty simple wood and white ceiling shop with a skinny, middle-aged Amish guy behind the counter. I don't know, should you trust a skinny donut maker? Well, that's an emphatic yes, because the peanut butter cream-filled chocolate top donut I got was the first thing I'd had to eat that day, and it kept me going till about 2:30. So good. I asked the guy a dumb question. You're open Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. I get the weekend, but why Wednesday? And as soon as I said it, I knew the answer, and we both said it together, because of the market. And that's the Belleville Farm Market. Every Wednesday in season, and people from the valley and beyond go there to get the best of the valley's harvest, from April forage through October apples. It's a very big deal. It's not that big a deal when you're there on April 1st. There were some nice apples and a hot sausage stand. Sorry, guys, I'm still full of donut. And some flea market stands, but the farm market won't get really rolling till May. I'm going to take Kathy down in June. I did stop at a farm stand along Route 655, though, because they had a sign for canned peaches. My parents used to can peaches, a lot of them, and they'd give some to us. Young Nora and Thomas loved them, called them Grammy peaches, and I got a jar for Nora. Simple stand, cash box, everything sitting on shelves, so I got my quart jar, put my money in the box, and away I went. Honor system, because, what else would you do? It's also an honor system over at Let Us Grow Hydroponic Farms on Back Mountain Road. There's this big, modern-looking hydroponic greenhouse. Looks like something out of science fiction, to be honest. And the lettuce is excellent. My man Russ Burkholder sells it at Berkey's here in Millheim. Wow, okay, now I'm all out of order. Before that stop, I was driving northeast on 655, and I found the sign for Home and Heart Variety Store. It's back a farm lane about 200 yards, a simple white building with a hitching post for buggies and rooms for vans full of Amish. I stepped on in. No lights, but for a single gently hissing Coleman lantern and a big hot pot-bellied stove in the middle. As I said in the interview, me and a dozen Amish women. We chit-chatted, mostly about what we were buying and the weather. There were aisles of kitchen sundries, simple toys for the children, sewing supplies, and bolts of fabric. There was also a large selection of books. I bought one, the Mifflin County Amish and Mennonite story. It's quite the tome, but it looks fascinating. I drove back to the other side of the valley, just exploring, and I saw a creek running through a meadow. Aha! The Kishocoquillas! Well, no, it was the little Kishocoquillas. So I followed it down into Belleville, where I went to the farm market and saw where the little Kish dumped into the Kish itself. I ran alongside that for a bit and then rolled onto Front Mountain Road and on down to Pate's store. Pate's is kind of a combination between a supermarket, a bulk food store, a hardware store, a dry goods, and a health food store. They really have a little bit of everything. And a lot of it is either locally made or made by Amish or Mennonites in Lancaster or Ohio or Indiana. Like the Guggisberg baby Swiss cheese I bought from Millersburg, Ohio, which I am going to have to get more of because I had to fight Kathy off it to get my fair share. It was mild, but deeply flavorful and amazing at room temperature. It's not just my opinion either. It's won Best of Show awards in Wisconsin. Now, I did say earlier it was hard to get a drink in the Big Valley, but it's not impossible. As I headed up Route 655 in Reedsville in the end of my day, I stopped at Brookmere Winery, one of the oldest of Pennsylvania's craft wineries dating back over 40 years. I walked in the door of the shop, which had just opened, and co-owner Cheryl Glick greeted me. She and her husband Ed have owned the winery for about 20 years, and they run it as a destination winery with an inn, a wedding venue, and events during the summer, like their upcoming Mother's Day brunch. They have the usual wide range of wines you'll see at a Pennsylvania winery, with the sweet fruity wine that keeps the doors open, and a smaller assortment of dry and semi-dry wines for the rest of us. Okay, for themselves and me. Even though it was a bit early, still, she poured me a sample of their Chambourcin. It's nicely dry but fruity. I'd have more of that. But I was, sadly, about out of time. I had time for lunch, so I headed up to Reedsville to Logan's Tavern, the relatively recently opened new occupant of the corner location that was past the Duchy and the Stonefly Cafe before that. I had a welcome draft glass of Yuengling Black and Tan, an old friend I hadn't had in years, and a crab cake sandwich that put me back on the road with a pleasantly full belly. I didn't get everywhere. How could I? I missed the long-lived Whitehall store, the Hayloft restaurant over the livestock auction, Richie's OIP. Hey, OIP, collect them all. And despite what Greg said, I didn't get to Hostetler's. Well, there'll be other days, and the Big Valley will be there. And I'm pretty sure it will be, as the song says, same as it ever was. That's the show. My thanks to Greg Hayes for the interview. It's kind of a leap of faith for both of us. As always, you can find pictures for this episode on Instagram at Stag Podcast and on Facebook at Seen Through a Glass. If you're listening to the show on the radio at WSOV, there are over 70 more episodes to enjoy at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, really any of the major podcast sources. We talked about the Amish a lot in this episode. White toppers, yellow toppers, black buggies, peachy Amish, and so on. And as I said, I grew up among the Amish and Mennonites in Lancaster County. They were my neighbors and classmates, my co-workers and friends. I actually have some family that are Mennonite. But there were some details about the different sects that I learned doing this episode that I'd never heard before. Lancaster Amish men don't wear belts. They use suspenders. Women wear bonnets, and my mother was telling me not long before she died that she'd noticed several new colors of Amish dresses, a beautiful burgundy among them. They do not use zippers. Their buggies are gray. I knew all that. In the Kish Valley, though, the white topper men wear pants with no belt or suspenders. They wear white shirts and brown pants. The women wear long, dark dresses. The yellow topper men wear no suspenders, but they wear colored shirts. And the black topper men are allowed to wear one suspender. And there's a whole hierarchy of screen doors, curtains, and carpets that I'm not even going to get into. The Valley View Amish, on the other hand, are not only allowed to wear two suspenders, they have automobiles and electricity in the home. Now, I say all this not to make light of it. All of these differences are wholly earnest, and they comfortably live their lives this way. In fact, the white toppers, the most conservative of Amish, are growing in numbers as other Amish join them. I think Greg Hayes is right. Jack's Mountain and Stone Mountain have shielded a unique community here, and they continue to do so. Next episode will be Big Valley Part 2, as mentioned, because I got such a good interview with Quentin Wicks at Revival Kitchen, and because Reedsville itself turned out to be such a little gem. Then 4 weeks from today, I'm hoping to have a bit of boozy Central PA history for you about Clinton County's bootlegger royalty, the renowned Prince Farrington. We'll see if I can pull that together. Until then, thanks for listening. This is Lou Bryson on Seen Through a Glass from the smack dab center of the Keystone State.